before the Queen's casket returned to England, King Charles met with Commonwealth officials over the past weekend, just days into his reign. But will all Commonwealth countries accept him as their head of state? Just last year, Barbados removed Queen Elizabeth as its head of state, and Jamaican officials plan to cut their ties to the monarchy in the coming years as well. Canada has not made any plans of the sort, formally proclaiming Charles king on Saturday. My next guest has a unique connection to this country and to the royal family. He's a descendant of Queen Victoria through her youngest son, Prince Leopold, making him her great-great-great-grandson. And his great-grandfather, Alexander Cambridge, was Governor-General of Canada from 1940 to 1946. UK Member of Parliament Ian Liddell-Grainger is with us from London. Hi, Mr. Liddell-Grainger. Good to meet you and good to have you on our program this evening.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be able to be with you.
And we appreciate you making the time for it. Canadians have today been watching the huge crowds gather to pay tribute to the Queen, to be able to see her coffin, and lined up all around London, in and around London. And I'm wondering, just from your perspective, what it has been like to witness the outpouring of affection for the Queen.
Well, I think it's sort of what we expected. She's always been an iconic figure. 70 years on the throne, she's seen, World War, 15 prime ministers. She's been around the Commonwealth. I can't remember how many countries she's visited, but it's something like 120. She's so well known that I think the British people just have appreciated, and not just in Britain, but across the world. This is an iconic figure that has stood for so much that is good in this world. And when things have been difficult, she's been the rock that we've all turned to when it has been tricky. But it's our way of saying thank you and goodbye.
And how about for yourself? Is that how you feel as well? Are you going to be able to pay your respects, or have you already?
Well, I was able to attend the King when he came to Parliament to speak, which was fantastic. And I am going to pay my respects in the next 24 hours. And I will be able to go to the funeral on Monday to say goodbye properly to Her Majesty.
And what does it mean to you to be able to go to that funeral, to be able to take part in that?
Well, I'm actually going as chairman of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, which to me is vitally important. The Commonwealth, just to give you an idea, and Canada is a vital part of this, is 56 countries, 180 parliaments, 2.4 billion people around the world are members of the Commonwealth. So to be able to represent them at a funeral of the head of the Commonwealth is an incredible honour, and one that I think that Canadians would understand this as much as anyone else, that this is somebody who's given her life to the Commonwealth to make sure that the Commonwealth is a thriving international organisation, multicultural, multi-faith, multi-ideas, but it does work so well.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I did want to ask you a few questions in your capacity as head of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. And the first is around kind of looking forwards, and in particular, based on your conversations with Prince, now King Charles, how you think his leadership or his time as king might impact the Commonwealth, or his view of it.
Well, I think it'll be the same as Her Majesty, because His Majesty he's a Commonwealth man to his fingernails, to put it in the old vernacular. And he is so respectful of the countries of the Commonwealth. He's visited so many of them. And as you're aware, that the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association this year held its conference in Halifax in Nova Scotia. And I pay great tribute to the legislature of Nova Scotia and to your speaker and to the Parliament of Canada, who looked after us so well. But His Majesty, I'm sure, will be in Canada very soon and around the world, because I think he sees that the Commonwealth can reach out to so many other countries. We've been joined by 2 more countries. And therefore, we are a growing organisation that has, I'd like to think, enormous sway with people and ideas. And if we can have a figure to sort of work around, it does make all these organisations so better. And hopefully, His Majesty will be there for quite some time. And therefore, we can do much more as an organisation to foster those great beliefs.
And just in that vein, the Commonwealth has, as you point out, great strength, but also has faced great challenges, especially as of late. There are countries voting for independence, for example, or for an elected head of state instead. And there are there's a lot of sort of consternation and concern over some of the colonial history in a lot of this as well. How do you think this new king, the monarch, will address that, or how would you like to see him address it?
I think there's two things. You've got to split two things up here. The first is if people want to leave and have their own president, prime minister, leave the Commonwealth, that's fine. But if you look at the history, none do. As you know, Barbados has just become a republic and they have not left the Commonwealth. We've just received 2 more countries who have joined us. We've got Maldives back in the family. All these are independent nations. They don't want to leave. And that, I think, is because they do see the past. They know the colonial past. They are the people of those countries. But they see the benefit. They understand that being part of a loose club, regardless of who your head of state is important. And if we can rally around the king as a figurehead, and that is the most important thing, as a figurehead, then it doesn't matter what your position is at home. You are therefore subscribing to a club which hopefully will better you, your country, and the people you represent.
That's interesting. So you view it as beneficial, even if the head of state changes or becomes elected or things like that change, to stay as the Commonwealth, and you see that as the future.
Oh yes, I mean the Commonwealth has grown since Her Majesty became Queen 70 years ago. It's grown enormously. And we've now got subnationals. Every state in Canada is an individual member of the Commonwealth, which is vital to the way we operate. And your speaker, Speaker Rota, we actually chaired the meeting in chaired the meeting in Halifax beautifully. But every state was represented, or province, and therefore that is the same across the world. And if people want to leave, that's fine. There's nothing to keep you, but nobody wants to go. And I think that says it all. This is a very, very, dare I say it, a very encompassing club. It doesn't matter who you are, what you are. We want to be part of you, and you want to be part of us. And it's if you go and had the meetings we did, as I said just now in Halifax, it was like a family get together. We all just sat, we chatted, and we talked about things from all over the world, from the smallest island in the Pacific to the largest countries like Canada and Australia, New Zealand, and many others. And we're a family, we're friends. And like all families, yes, occasionally fall out, but blood is thicker than water at the end of the day.
And just finally, Mr. Liddell-Grainger, before I let you go, I take all of the points that you're making. I wonder, though, through the lens of the way in which King Charles views the Commonwealth or addresses it, despite that, that family bond, if it is important, in your view, for him to acknowledge the sentiment that leads some of those members to want to alter the configuration. And by that, I mean in particular the history of colonialism and some of the racial injustices that certainly are top of mind for many of the people who have expressed some concerns. Like, how do you think King Charles will go about that?
The way that the Queen did. We're not blind to our history. You can't be. History is history. You must look at it in the face and you must take it on the chin. Every one of our countries, including Canada, has history which doesn't always do us credit. But if you take, say, for instance, India, the Speaker of the Lok Sabha, which is huge, it's 2 billion people, he is a great friend. He comes and we talk. There are 22 provinces in India. They are incredible friends. They know the history. We know the history. If they wish to bring it up, they will. And if they don't, they don't. But at the end of the day, we're big enough. And dare I say it, we're old enough now, we're 110 years old, to be able to talk to each other, including the history of our countries and the role the British had over many years as a colonial power. And we're all grown up.
Thank you very much for sharing your reflections. I appreciate it. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.